thank you so much for coming. My name is Beth McCarthy Smith. I have a small business, woman-owned here in town, called Simplicity Cold Pressed Juice and Cocktails. I am super excited to share with you and introduce my friend David Meske. One of the interesting things that we have had is there's a stranglehold on the marketplace in getting fulfillment these days. What we're going to talk to you, what David is going to talk to you about his new company. I'm going to read so I don't forget anything. David is the co-founder of Gourmet Food Marketplace. Sure. Does he have his MBA from Harvard? Sure. Is he a successful analyst? Is he uber successful at launching Yummy Bazaar, which is a B2C for imported specialty foods? Absolutely, all of that. But David has pivoted. He has co-founded Gourmet Food Marketplace and is doing so in changing the landscape of independent retail shops, mom and pops, foods and restaurants all across the country. GFM connects food suppliers to the stores in a way that is profitable for the stores, for all the mom and pops, for the restaurants, gives them 100% fulfillment. And if you guys are in the business, I'm sure you are, you know what a rarity that is. With no minimums. Yes, I said no minimums. And they serve the community. I know the pain and the struggle of fulfillment that has happened since COVID. I always say I could bottle gold. And if I can't get it on the shelf, it really doesn't matter. And so that is what David is doing. He's had the pain points. He has seen what's going on. David's passion ensures that these independent retailers and mom and pops and restaurants, brands like mine, not only survive, but are able to thrive. They are the fabric of our American society. He is honestly, my Superman. He is Superman to vendors like me, to retailers, to restaurants, and I am seriously getting teary because it is so important. Please join me in welcoming and thanking Gourmet Food Marketplace co-founder David Meske.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth, for the kind introduction. You're too kind. And today, we're going to talk about pivot. Pivot or perish. It's my first time in Indianapolis. I love it, and it's my first time talking about pivoting. This story is unfolding as we speak, and so to be continued in the future. Gosh. Not working. Troy, can we, this, anyway. I guess I'm going to continue without a presentation. It will catch up with us. So picture yourself, it is the fall of 2022. Weather is fantastic. The pandemic has ended. Everything has gone back to normal, and it's great, it's wonderful. But there is nothing wonderful about our business, a B2C, business to consumer, e-commerce selling specialty food from around the world. The sales are declining, the margins are declining, and does not matter what we do, how we push, it makes no difference. We're sitting there and we're scratching our heads and what is going on, what's happening, and what can we do to fix this? And after digging quite a bit, we realized that during the pandemic, right, the food sales skyrocketed online. And so what happened is you had a lot of new entrants in the market. And once the pandemic ended and everything normalized, you have a market that goes back to roughly to its original size, maybe a little bigger. But now you have dramatically more players. So there is a structural pressure on margins and growth rate. So we looked out and said, hey, it's either pivot or perish. There's nothing we could do about it. And we decided to pivot, and luckily, we had been thinking about pivoting in the past and have done a lot of research, a lot of work. What kind of tech stack we should have? How should we code the marketplace? What should be our competitive advantage? We thought a lot about that in the past, as we wanted to always, evolve our business model. And we wanted to pivot towards a B2C marketplace, enabling commerce between brands and suppliers and consumers, while integrating fulfillment in it. And so we did one tweak in fall of 2022. Instead of B2C, we pivoted to B2B. And let me tell you why. So first, we developed, by being an online retailer ourselves initially, right, we developed passion for the problems that the retailers were facing. And let me give you an example. So let's say you're a retailer and you want to sell fantastic, interesting, great products. Well, the problem is the minimums. So let's say supplier A carries a certain amount of products, supplier B different types, C and different types. So if you wanted to have a nice selection, exciting selection that would excite the consumer, then you'd have to work with all these suppliers. Well, guess what? All these suppliers have their own minimums. And so now if you meet their minimum and their minimum and their minimum, then suddenly you have so much money out in working capital, so much money sitting in inventory, that it's hard to be profitable. So that was one problem that we felt very passionate about. The second problem that we felt passionate about was the expiration date. So imagine you're ordering all these products, right? And so typically, let's say a product has 10 months shelf life. And you order a product, it comes in, and instead of 10 months, it's 2 months. And so then you're working back and forth with the supplier that goes, oh, you sent me 2 months. They said, well, then don't buy it if you don't want it. So all these haggling constantly, and it's really difficult. And so if you put a transparency into the supply chain where everybody can see the expiration dates before they buy, then that makes all that problem go away, right? And so that was another thing that we connected very personally with. So that was number one. We're very passionate about those. Second, what we loved about the B2B business, it's that larger orders and high repeat rates. So if your business, if your service or your product is part of another business's service delivery, then they tend to come back, right? As long as you do a good job, they come back. So it's a nice repeat business, and it dramatically more repeat than the consumer business. So we loved that. The third thing that we loved about the B2B business was lower marketing intensity. So with the consumer business, you spend a lot of money on marketing. Here, with the B2B, it's dramatically less, and the repeat rates are high. So on a marketing dollar spend, it's a significantly higher revenue. So we love that. And lastly, purely from a financial metric standpoint, it's just a higher return on capital business, right? You generally more profitable and higher return on capital. Why? Because you're not buying the inventory, you're not managing so many things, and so from that perspective, the return on capital is high. So we said, hey, let's jump into and let's transition the business now. Let's pivot our business. So what we did is we started changing the business. Now we kept all our shareholders, obviously, all of that, and with the same company entity, and we retained the legacy business as well. In fact, we still own that business. And so we pivoted into, but now our big core business now is GFM, Gourmet Food Marketplace, the B2B business. So we started pivoting, and the first challenge we found is that everybody needs to align with the vision. So you have a team that loves the consumer business, and you're announcing the next day, hey guys, now we're going to be in a B2B business. That's going to be our core. So that's something that the team needs to connect. The team needs to have passion. Otherwise, without passion, it's very difficult, particularly to make it through a pivot. So we got lucky in the sense that our team members were intimately familiar with these pain points, right? So we have so our director of operations, for example, he would always be fighting for the expiration dates and stuff like that. And suddenly he goes, oh, wow. So wait a minute, our customers, the stores that would be our customers, can now see what the expiration dates is. That's incredible. We wanted to carry products that we couldn't carry because of minimums. And the team was like, wow, we can now give this incredible selection to our stores without any minimums. That's great. So we were able to connect, the team was able to connect with passion because they personally experienced these problems while being part of the B2C. The next thing was the way we thought, the mentality shift. So imagine you're an online e-commerce business and you're buying from various suppliers, brands, importers, whatnot. They deliver you the product, you pay them the money. Simple. Now, what changed now is these suppliers were going to become our customers, because what's unique, our business model is we pool inventory from all these suppliers. They remain the owners of the inventory. It sits in our fulfillment center. And as we ship out, they get directly paid out their sales proceeds. And we collect a fee off of that. So imagine going to the suppliers and saying, hey, we used to buy from you and no more from now on. We are asking you to please put inventory in our facility. Not going to get paid a dime until it sells. That's a tough sell. And so the way we solve this problem, a couple of ways. Number one, so we stopped buying. So you cannot do both. So we stopped buying, and we try to convince them in the benefits. So basically, the biggest benefit is that you're giving them incremental distribution. So whatever their supply chain is already reaching, they're reaching. But there is hundreds of thousands of stores, mom and pop stores in the US and restaurants, right? And so you're not reaching those, a big chunk of those, because of minimums, because of whatnot. So that was a big plus point. Second of all is no strings attached. So, hey, why don't you give us a shot? And if you don't like it, give us 30 days, 60 days. You don't like it, we'll bring it back to you. No strings attached, we shake hands and we're done. So that reduced their perception of risk. So, and then once they got paid out, they saw the stores buy. So everything is very transparent in our platform. You see which store buys from you. You see the fulfillment. So it's pretty transparent. You see your inventory. You see everything. So once they got paid out on 10th of each month, like clockwork, they go, oh wow, we like that. So that was another, but it was a shift. The other thing is how we spoke and how we treated. So like, for example, emails, right? You cannot write the same kind of emails now that you're a service business, now that suppliers became your customers, like you did before. You have to answer them much faster. You need to put in more accountability, what you say, how you say, precision. So it's important to celebrate precision, celebrate accountability, and we really had a big push in the organization to make sure that we did that. So that's the other thing, again, mentality shift, right? And then lastly, let's talk about funding and investors. So funding is going to be tough, brace for impact. I mean, big. And here is why. So you have a structural issue. So you have existing business that is challenged, declining revenue, declining margins, whatnot. And then you have a new business that is too small or in development, and so therefore it's hard to underwrite, it's hard to invest in. So either A, investors are not interested, or B, they might say, hey, that's a cool thing you're working on, but I'm going to sit and wait until you have traction, until you things get back, and then that's when I'm going to invest and that's when I'm going to underwrite. So you have a structural air pocket of funding. And so then the question is, well, what are you going to do during this air pocket? And I wish I could tell you that it's going to be great and easy, and it's not, and it's going to be tough, and it's going to suck. And so, at least for us, it did. And so basically, I mean, we had some existing investors putting money, some new, but a big chunk of it, most of it really fell on the founders. So you go dig out your savings, you sell your house, you do what you have to do. But if you believe in the business and if you believe in the future of what you're doing and the problems you're solving, then you might just do that. And so that was our story, in a sense. That's how we are addressing now. We're not fully done with the air pocket, but I would say, with a nice chunk, it's behind us at this point. So again, funding is going to be really, really challenging. With that said, there we are, 6-7 months down the line of transitioning, and we have the business. We put out a shingle, it's working. Inventory is working, inventory tracking, fulfillment, marketplace, payouts, everything's working. Wonderful, great. But how are we going to get traction? How are we going to so it's a beautiful flywheel, right? If it works, the marketplace, it's beautiful. So you have a flywheel where you have the more suppliers you have, and the larger the product selection, the more buyers you will get, and then the more buyers you get, the more suppliers, so you get this flywheel, right? And once it turns, and it turns nicely, that's all great, but how do you get this to turn? So, we knew some, obviously we had good relationships in the industry. We launched some suppliers that initially kind of risked with us. On the buyer side, our existing B2C e-commerce was the first customer, so it helped provide certain sell-through. So our existing e-commerce stopped buying from everybody and just became solely a customer of our platform. So you would just buy at wholesale from our platform and resell it at retail to its consumer base. So it provided that initial sell-through, but clearly not enough. But at least whoever initial suppliers gave us inventory, they at least saw, okay, it's selling, it's not just sitting there with zeros, right? And then we started out getting customers, stores and restaurants, using inside sales, outreach. And so imagine, so we are in this funding air pocket, right? And so we're like not taking salary to founders. And we don't have money to hire people. And so we're like doing everything ourselves. The team is like doing a million things. And so there's only so much customers you can get, right? But you can also go out and, so you can hire, but you can also not grow too slowly. Because if you grow too slowly, you're burning money. So you're just gonna burn money over more months and then you're dead. So you're dead if you hire people because you don't have money. And if you grow too slow, you're dead because you're just going to more months and you're just going to burn money. Now we have a profitable business model, so as long as we grow, the more cash drops to the bottom line, so we can cover our burn. But you need to grow. If you don't grow, you don't cover it. So that was another kind of little chicken and egg problem that we had. What do we do? You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. So we then thought about it and said we have to figure something out to get gears so that these gears can turn this flywheel faster without money. So how do we do that? And so we needed a gear for the supply side and a gear for the buy side so that they would turn and then turn the flywheel faster. So on the supply side, it's only several months old, this innovation. So we came up with a financial innovation that would plug directly into the platform. That's the beauty of the platform we built. You can plug things and unplug things to it. So it's called Finance Seller Program. So what's a Finance Seller Program? Finance Seller would plug into the platform. Finance Seller buys from a brand or an importer at a distributor price and then resells on the platform at a wholesale price to the stores on the platform. So we put out no money. It's finance seller puts out the money and then earns a return that makes sense for them. So since we implemented this, we have now more finance seller funding available for our platform than we can actually physically use, because it takes time to negotiate with brands and get the right pricing and stuff like that. So, and it has really accelerated supply on the supply side without us putting up a dime, basically. So we're excited. We think it is a long-term structural solution for this. And as long as our finance sellers make money, and of course the product needs to sell, right? The product needs to turn that they buy. But thankfully we have a lot of data of what products sell, what are great products. We've been in this business for many years on the B2C side. So that is helping us as well to kind of guide our finance sellers. Hey guys, this is a great product. This is a great brand. This is a great importer, and kind of work with that. So again, 2 months old, but we're really, really excited with the traction that we're seeing. We've hit 2 all-time highs in the last 3 months, so we're really excited about that. Now, what do we do with the buyers? Again, still don't have money to hire people. Raising funding is still difficult. What do we do? So here's what we came up with. So there is a lot of companies out there, right, that have tons of stores and restaurants as their customer. They could be delivery companies like DoorDash, let's say, or they could be software companies, they could be large national distributors, whatnot. So we figured if we could do deals with them, if we could do partnerships with them, we could immediately, overnight, potentially gain access to large customer base. So we're working on that, and hopefully we will announce something pretty soon. But that is very, very exciting. So again, you don't spend a dime, but you potentially can get a large customer base. The other thing we're doing, again, towards the gear, plugging in another financial partner to provide credit for stores. So right now, every store that buys on our platform, they prepay every order. And that's very difficult because for them, because money goes out and they wait at least X amount of time to get that money back through sales. Now, by getting 30-day credit, they will be able to get the product, sell it, and basically repay the money from the sales proceeds. So we're working with a financial partner, hopefully, to introduce that very quickly. So that should really accelerate that gear as well. So basically, the key is, and what we found is, even if initially the gears are slow, iterate, think about it, and we should be able to come up with something. So that's what we're looking at right now, and it's really, really exciting. Oh, there it is. I think I'm going to just abandon the. Oh, it's the new one. Oh, I see. Okay, thanks. All right, let's see if we can get the. Okay. That's the flywheel that I was talking about. So, one thing I wanted to talk about before jumping into takeaways from our experience, one thing I want to talk about is some of the stats some of the research that we did to see what's up with the pivots, what's going on. So, we all know the general statistic, right? 90% of startups fail, and there's only like 10% survival rate. And so what was interesting is 75% of startups that pivot succeed. So we're talking about significant pivot, major pivot, and they succeed. Harvard did a study, and they looked at 400 successful startups, and out of the 400 successful startups, 93% were a result of a pivot. And so basically, if you look at the odds, so you start a startup and you're saying, okay, odds are really against me. It's 90% fail rate, 10% success rate. Once you pivot, at least based on the research that we found, that those odds go up by like 7x. So that's exciting. Going back to 2022, when we pivoted, we found research where 40% of startup founders in 2022 pivoted to save their business. So I guess we're one of them. Also, just to talk about what progressed in 2023, which is called basically startup extinction year, the startup Armageddon, which was last year. 3,200 venture-funded startups in the United States went out of business. I know that we would have definitely gone out of business if we didn't pivot it. That's for sure. And so that's a really unfortunate statistic, but that's what happened last year. Key takeaways. So one of the things that I'd like to leave with you is think about pivoting the business, improving the business model, making it better before the time comes that you have to. Now, we all like to, pivot smoothly, and it's all nice and great, but it rarely happens, and we did another research on that, and basically, most pivots are forced. So you get into a situation, and you're forced to okay. So you're forced to make the change. So that's one. And by preparation, I mean, we looked at, on the preparation side, we looked at the tech stacks. We looked at how it would work, how fulfillment modules would integrate with the marketplace module. We had all of that work done ahead of time, what kind of architecture we wanted to use, all of those things. So keep thinking about these things, even if your business is doing well. Think about, hey, you know what? How can we do even better? What would we need to do to make this business even more attractive, structurally, business model-wise? And I think that's really helpful. Transition is going to be the hardest part because everything needs to change. Your thinking needs to change. Team's thinking needs to change. Passions need to connect because transition is tough, right? You can't just be, you can't be motivated by money because all I've seen is money go out of my pocket, right? Like it's money is leaving you, but then you're working 7 days a week and you love doing it. And so the question is how? And so the only way that works is you connect with passion. And the only way it works with your team members, they also need to connect with passion because they're not going to stay around. assuming they're capable good people, they can find a million jobs out there, right? So that's very, very important. And then funding, right, in the transition. There will be this air pocket. This air pocket is going to be tough. I wish I could deliver, again, a better message, but I can't, because I have to be honest. And so this air pocket, brace for it. Cut costs as much as possible, right? Reduce, no nice to haves. We even clean our office ourselves, So that's what we do. Launching the new business, the new strategy, executing, right? You've coded, you've built, all of it's worked. You press a button and now everything works. That's an incredible milestone. That's an incredible achievement. You got this transition behind you, but we're not done. Remember, iterate, iterate, iterate. You're going to have times where you're not going to have any traction with the new business model. You're going to have times where you're going to have declining traction. So you have a high traction suddenly, yay, and then suddenly it's declining and you go, my gosh. You're going to have times when you're going to have declining traction. So believe in yourself at the point, because you went through already the transition, the toughest part. You thought about this pivot for a long time. You've built up to it. Have faith. Know what you're doing. You've solved already those problems before. You're going to solve these coming problems again. And it's only normal to encounter these challenges. So iterate, iterate, iterate. The hardest part is behind you. And the last thing I wanted to say, which is kind of a hidden, and it's not obvious. And we have to consciously, and I found myself working on that because I have a very forceful personality. I kind of speak with deep conviction and so forth, and sometimes I can be intimidating to people. So I don't want to do that. And I'm self-conscious about that. And so one of the things is to avoid your biases influencing how you do things in the new way, right? So, for example, we are now in this new business, and marketing has to be done completely differently. In B2C, we were doing, performance marketing, Google, Facebook, whatnot, we had whole systems developed for that. And then, so now suddenly we're in this relationship business of business owners and stores. And so I was like, well, why aren't we using Google more? Why aren't we allocating more money? Why aren't we doing this? And I'm like, no, David, stop. Don't stop pushing people, because they have really good points. And again, fighting your own bias that is driven by the way you used to do things is very important to consciously kind of manage and don't let that out. Otherwise, we wouldn't have come up with the innovations that we did, and the team did. So that's what I wanted to say. If any of you have any questions, I wanted to leave some time for questions. Sorry about the presentation. It didn't work initially, so I apologize for that. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Go ahead. Yes? Absolutely. Some of them are from Harvard, but I can, after the fact, I can send you and send everybody. Absolutely. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Test. Okay. I'm a B2B marketer, and I'm curious, you mentioned relationship marketing, and it's very time consuming. So when you made your pivot, how long did it take for you to establish those relationships in this industry?
Oh, very good question. So, correct. It's not only immediate, and it's a constant relationship. So we know our store owners, almost all of them, and we text and we speak with them. So we are part of their business delivery. But basically, how it works is, and how we started from zero, right? You have zero store customer, day one. Press the button, you're in new business. What did we do? Well, first, we said, okay, this Google and stuff, no more. And then we started, okay, inside sales. So what do you do for inside sales? Well, we found lists of companies that we thought we would be directly benefiting from our service. And then we purchased the list. We went to Google and looked at their store. Now today on Google, you can literally see what they have inside their store. And so I said, okay, potential customer. And then, utilizing different CRM tools like HubSpot, whatnot, and just building email campaigns, calling. Calling is very important. My co-founder and I we trained how to do sales calls. how not to get discouraged. It was a complete like new thing. But reaching out, speaking, communicating the value prop, that's how we did it. And we're still doing it. I mean, the problem is it's too slow. So we're still in that air pocket of funding. And so that's why we're trying to get the gears. We will always be focused on building inside sales and our sales effort. But if we can leverage other companies through integrations, through partnerships, that we could address large install base, we would love to do that as well.
Yeah, question over here. Over here. So how long, how much runway did you have when you decided to pivot, and then how much time did it take from when you thought about pivoting to actually executing on the pivot?
Very good question. So when we decided to pivot, we had roughly a runway of about, so that's roughly about 10 months, 10, 11 months. And out of that, you're looking at 6, 7 months of just like coding and connecting and physicals, like building the actual business. So like zero revenue, zero outreach, zero anything, just actually making the thing work, make sure it works. So that was that. And then when we kind of started, we had like several months of runway. And then what mistakenly we thought was, hey, we can show that we have this new business. It is so attractive, such a great business model. We have some initial traction, and we would be able to get funding, and that didn't happen. And that's the air pocket I talked about. So that's not like we didn't go into that knowing that. We kind of went in with like all rosy and stuff. Oh, this is great. And then suddenly, well, the reality hits you, and then you start digging up your savings, and then you say, okay, well, I'm not going to take salary. And then you say, okay, well, I might have to sell my house, and you have to do all those things. And then you see the traction, and you see what you're doing, and you're like, man. And then the way you think about this is, you live once, and you're going to have this idea once. And so it's kind of that kind of thing that goes into your head. And then you start making those difficult decisions.
So I work with a lot of women business owners as a WBC host. And one of the things that happens is to get your spouse on board with you to even get a loan or to get investors is really hard. So when you're saying, you put your house up, if that's what it comes to, not getting paid, are you married?
Yes, and in fact.
Sorry, that came out wrong.
It's fine. It's fine. I understand. And what makes it easier and harder, I would say, is that my spouse is my co-founder. And so it's been and what's interesting is, in fact, she's behind all the technology architecture. And what makes it hard is we're kind of have, as a family, all eggs in one basket, so to speak. However, on the emotional side, it's easier because your spouse understands the pain you're going through, and then you understand the pain your spouse is going through. So you provide that mutual support system. And I think from that standpoint, I think it's harder and easier at the same time. Okay. I guess thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderful day.